am Bonga Mkhiga, and today is the 8th of January. I'd like to thank you for taking your time out to come watch. Firstly, we appreciate your time, because we know that there's so many other things that you could have chosen to do. There's so many other content that you could have chosen to spend your time on, but we have decided to take this time and put it here. We do not take it for granted, and we certainly hope that it will not be wasted. And we can guarantee you that it is our intention to ensure that it is used to the best of our abilities. The purpose of this video is to touch on 5 subjects, which are all looking to introduce why we are coming to you today in the manner in which we are. The first question is, why a YouTube channel? Where we are trying to explain the purpose of the channel, the content that will come through as well. The other one is looking at who is the audience that we are targeting. So what sort of person, what is the outlook that we are looking to cultivate, and such things. We will also touch on what the lineup is to tie in with the previous question there. So where we will be explaining what are we looking to bring to you, why do we think we deserve to have you decide to give us your time, and we will also go into why the name, The Nest, because there's so many other names, and it is so key that if there is to be anyone who is tuning into this channel quite regularly, at least they first must understand why the name was chosen to be the one that we have mentioned already, The Nest. Lastly, we will touch on what the frequency is likely to be going forward, or at least that we intend to follow going forward in terms of putting up new content, so when you should be expecting new stuff to come through. Let's go back to the very beginning in terms of why a YouTube channel. In the last 12 months, particularly the period of lockdown that we have been through, I've been putting through some content that has been relatively sporadic for the most part, touching on certain aspects of my belief in Christ. So with this particular channel, we are looking to have a structured, sequential type of a flow to how we want to come across. We will be touching on matters that affect people between the ages of 20 to 35, and it is not just about speaking about what is in the Bible. Yes, at times we will, but we are looking at the practical application of what a person between those ages is going through, as we know that people between the ages of 20 and 35, particularly 25 to 35, are going through some of the most intense set of changes in their lives. People have come out of tertiary institutions with dreams to have them die in this particular phase. People have set up their lives with certain goals that by this particular age, I need to have done this, I need to have done that. So we are looking at how to basically deal with all those expectations that, one, you would have set up for yourself, and two, that people around you will have set up for you. How do you manage the progress? And if there's been any failure in any part, in whatever way you define failure, we also want to look at how do you get up from that. How do you design a life from this very point that you will look back in 15 years' time and say, I am grateful that I did that. I am grateful that I took that path. I'm grateful that I met so and so. So the purpose there is basically looking to structure a certain form of content that appeals to people between these ages. And at any point in time, it is possible, of course, that certain of these topics that we will bring to you will be much more applicable to you regardless of your age. So it does not close out people that are younger than 20 or even people that are older than 35. It is just to say that if we are to make a pick, we are looking at people between those ages for the aforementioned reasons. If we were to go also into what the lineup is for this year that we are looking to bring, we will start off the year with a personal goals series. This personal goals series will feature about 4 episodes starting next week, and the idea there is firstly to introduce who is your host, that is me, Not necessarily what I like and what I don't like type of an introduction, but more in line with the topic that we will be dealing with, which is personal goals. So I'll be talking to you about what goals I have set for this year, why I have selected them, how do I think I will best achieve them. And with that, we will be launching into the other 3 episodes, basically where we are looking at certain other aspects of setting personal goals. Basically things that involve like, why do people fail? We're looking at things that have been spoken about in the past over so many times such that we have accepted them as the norm or as the standard. Things like your SMART goals, where you are encouraged that if you are setting up a goal, it must have all those 5 aspects, which feature things like it must be measurable, it must be timeless. All those things we want to see, how do they apply to my life practically? How do they apply to your life specifically? So we're going to be speaking about those things also. Also, we want to talk about how do you manage the emotion that comes through, because it's easier now when the year is starting for us to set up a long list of the things that we want to achieve. But as the year goes on, when March comes through, no one is talking about New Year's resolutions. When June comes through, the weather changes to what is somehow wintry in one form or the other, depending on which part of the country you're at. We want to talk about how do you manage when the excitement has gone down and no one is watching or even asking you what your plans are for the year. How do you build yourself up? How do you build that motivation when it has waned, either because of circumstance or even things that are sitting within you that may be discouraging you? So we want to talk about that. So please join us over the next 4 weeks, where we will basically be outlining those particular aspects around personal goals. Over and above that, we will have some individual episodes that will air, that will be touching on certain topics that affect as well people within the age group that we have specified. One of the episodes that we will be touching on is one that we want to call the background check. We have decided to call it this because it will be focusing on the impact of growing up in a single-parented household. In this instance, we want to describe a single-parented household as any household where your biological mother and father were not with you when you were growing up. So it could be that you were growing up with your grandparents, you grew up with a single mother, a single father, you grew up with your aunts, you grew up in an orphanage, in any particular space that does not have the presence of your physical mother and your physical father. So those are the things that we want to speak about, because we have seen that they tend to influence the expectations that you set up for your life, one, the things that you set up as your fears, because as rude or as obscure as that may sound, we set up our failures. So we want to talk to those things. How does that impact you, and what steps can you best take to ensure that you are not limited by the background from which you come? We will also talk about friendship. What attracted you to the friends that you keep? This is another episode now away from background check. The idea here is that most of the friends that we tend to keep are people whom we have met by chance. We happened to be in the same space, and at that particular time we happened to share the same interests. So now we are looking beyond that to say, how do you pick your friends? Is it something practical to deliberately look for people or individuals that fit the form of friendship that you intend to have? So that talk will be quite relaxed, speaking through to how I have picked my own friends, whether it has been deliberate or whether it has been as passive as we mostly tend to do sometimes. The idea here is not to cast away friendships because we picked them by chance, rather, but it is more to say, now that we have this friendship, how do we give it goals? Let it not just be about passing time. If it is just about passing time, then we need to define what passing time is about. How often we are to even engage, because certain of these relationships, they break down with fickle stuff. because people did not call you and you called them twice. So now that friend is no longer as strong a friend as you first assumed. So we want to talk about these things. How do you bring them up to the people even when you may be uncomfortable in doing so? Basically, how do you bring out your expectations to your friends? The other one that I'm hoping that my wife may join me for is one around marriage. It is speaking to the idea of how do you know that you are ready? And we will be speaking through to that through our own experience. How did we know that we were ready to marry? Because a lot of people within this age group, particularly from a gentleman's perspective, there's always that question that says, is this time? Is it time? Is it time? And of course, you're going to have a lot of people that are busy pushing you to get married. But the idea is, how do you know? How do you assess? What aspects need you look at before you can even say that you want to marry a lady? And particularly a lady in this instance, I want to stress. Another series that I'm quite excited about is one that is focusing on business. I particularly have no business of my own that I have formed yet, and stress on yet. So we'll be bringing in individuals that are already in business with the question of why I started my business. So here we are looking to have them give us their experiences of running a business, the certain guidelines that they've gone about setting these up. How do they pick the individuals that they work with, either from an employment point of view or even just business partnership type of arrangements that they enter into. So this one will be directly from the horse's mouth. But over and above that, the aim of that particular series is to encourage someone who may be sitting in their own homes, not necessarily limited by capital per se, but limited by fear of starting a new thing, of taking the leap. We are questioning there, we're putting a question that says, the ones that have already jumped, how did they do it? Hopefully that will, together with all the other content that a number of people that I am familiar with have been pushing through in terms of entrepreneurship. This is also another means and another avenue to add on to that, with the idea of saying that maybe it's about time we take up the challenge of unemployment within our country through these avenues. The other series that we are looking to run as well is one that we call the Social Fix. Within that Social Fix, we've got about 3 episodes that we have planned. It's looking at, the first one will be around xenophobic vibes in my circles. Normally when we speak xenophobia in South Africa, we're speaking about informal settlements. So we're speaking about people that are in dire situations of poverty. But now we want to see how does it affect individuals that have come through from various countries that are not South Africa, that are living within our space. I'm talking about professionals now that are working in certain companies, are running their own businesses around this side, to see how does it affect them, how does it come up on a day-to-day basis of their lives in the circles that they are amongst, and the fears that it puts. The idea there is just to highlight to us who may be of this country, or even people that have basically called this place a home for quite a long time. It's to highlight what parts of my behavior are contributing to these xenophobic tendencies. As much as I look at the TV when the news come up and I judge other people, here we are looking to say, what can I do within my own space to encourage or to cultivate an open culture, an open acceptance of individuals, even though they may be coming from a different country than I am. That's Social Fix 1. Social Fix 2 will be looking at GBV vibes in my circle. This is gender-based violence tendencies as well within my own space. It's basically to say, now how do I go about, and what can I do as an individual in my own little family? How do I ensure that such a culture is not built up? How do I ensure that even though I may have grown up watching it, I do not perpetuate it some more within my own space? The other one that we'll be looking at is basically, I'm even much more excited about this one. It is to say, my trade says yes, but my faith says no. So what we are looking at here is basically instances where Your faith may have different principles by which you ought to live, but the trade, your work, your business, the environment in which you are in is calling for a different approach. For starters, the marriage of people of the same sex has been made legal, but we know what the Bible says about that kind of practice. So we are looking at people who are within that space, who've got marriage licenses, who are Christian, who are to say now, how do you handle that instance? We're looking at things like medical doctors or medical practitioners, let's call them that, who are Christian, but must administer abortion, the whole process. So we're looking at saying, how do you do that? How do you handle that? Even in standard business, where there is corruption, and the Bible is basically calling for the absence of that, or rather refraining from practicing that. So what we are looking at there is to say, how do you follow biblical principles in an environment that does not allow, in fact, very much calls for the opposite. There's one more other series that we will run for this year. It's basically Men Who Inspire Me conversations. You will be familiar with the fact that in 2020 I put through a number of posts. It was happening on Sundays, where I was basically putting out a group of about 5 gentlemen whom I have encountered one way or the other in my life, whether over short spells or even longer spells, who have basically made a positive impression in my life. So what I'm looking at there is to now have a conversation with them. So we're sitting together and we're talking about their lives, how they've set up their lives, the certain principles that govern the way that they go about their lives, how do they manage their time. For those that have got families, in the sense that they're married and stuff, how do they manage that space? How do they manage their relationships? So we are hoping that we'll encourage somebody to get in touch with their own motivations, to get in touch with their own inspiration, to see how best can they restructure their lives should they need to, and where to get motivation, how to build that courage to start new things, to get into new ventures, basically how to improve your life. And lastly, there's this challenge that I will be looking to take up probably in the second half of the year. We've set it up in that manner. It's basically, I've been reading up a lot, and I still intend to, a plant-based diet. So what I'm looking to do there is, for a period of about 30 days, where I'll be engaging in this, that is not eating anything that is meaty or related to animals in any kind of way. And this is not to say I am looking at becoming vegetarian or any of those type of lifestyles. It's basically just exploring to see what type of food do these individuals eat, and how does it make your body feel. Are you compromised in any kind of way? So this is something that partly scares me, I must say, because for all my life I've been eating meat. As much as I'm not a big meat eater, but I eat meat. So this is a totally different thing from all that I know and all that I've been all this time. So I'm a bit freaked out by it, but I'm doing a lot of reading up as well, and chatting with a number of individuals whom I know are already engaged in this as their lifestyle. So here's to 2021 and trying new things. And lastly, at this point, there will be what we'll be calling express notices. These will be 2 to about 5 minutes type of presentations, or rather speeches or content that we will be flighting through. This is basically impromptu type of postings. These will cover the current affairs that may be happening within the country, throughout the global space, and basically how they affect me as a young person. So it may be expressing a certain opinion, a certain view, or calling to action for a certain type of a response in light of a particular action. So we call it a notisode because it is a note, but at the same time it will be put throughout as an episode. So these ones will be express episodes and will not necessarily form part and follow the track, or rather the timing that we will be putting out, as per the name says, express. So what is the frequency that we are looking to put through some of these, or rather these episodes that we have put together? They will not come out every Friday like we intend to put out between Friday at 6 o'clock, but we are looking to cover about 35 episodes in a year that has got about 52, 53 weeks there. So what that means that there will be certain instances where there's breaks when we are moving in between series, for instance. So that's what we will be looking at. But for the most part, you are likely, and we intend to ensure that you've got something to watch every Friday at 6 o'clock. So we encourage you to please tune in on Fridays at 6 o'clock, and please leave some comments as well when you've got some impression that you have picked up, whether it's a complimentary one or whether it's one that seeks a particular improvement in any kind of way. And we hope to grow together in this journey, and we hope to engage more and more. For those that have got the ability to come through on the DMs, please send through any content that you would like to have covered. And also, over and above that, please share your views. If you liked an episode, please mention. If you did not like an episode, please mention. As I did say, we are hoping to grow together in this particular journey that we are taking up for 2021. It is a new year after all, and we are hoping that it will lead to us doing new things. And over and above that, it will not just be another year where the number has changed, but my heart and mind and my physical body and my finances and my emotional state have remained the same. So we are hoping that it will be that kind of a transformative journey that we hope to do all together, and we hope come the 31st of December 2021 we'll all have positive things to say about it, particularly linked to this channel as well. Please do share your experiences. We look forward to hearing from you, and thank you. What's in a name? A name is basically your identifier. It speaks to your aspirations for the most part, but also speaks to your experiences that bring you to existence. It speaks of the wishes of those that name you. It also speaks of their desires as well. So we have called this particular avenue that you are tuning in today the nest. And the idea behind the nest is that it is a safe space, firstly. It is a space where individuality is encouraged. It is a place where you are nurtured. It is a place where you are encouraged to grow to be the very person who fulfills all their potential. And in explaining why the name nest as well, we want to look at 3 types of birds and basically how they go about building their nest. We've got the hummingbird, where a nest is built by the female bird. It is not reliant in any kind of way on the male bird. It goes about collecting the material that it uses, and it uses it to the full extent. It builds for certain environments. It allows for the growth of the young, where they're getting bigger, the nest can basically expand to accommodate them. That is the first type of bird that we are looking at. The other bird that we are looking at is one called a weaver. Within the weaver community, a nest is built by the male bird. It is built by the male bird using fresh grass. The whole idea of weaving is that it puts together this ball-like type of a structure with a tiny opening in the front that allows for one bird to come in or out at a time. And the idea there is that it builds it with the intention of impressing a female counterpart, with the idea of then going on to build a family. So that is the second bird that we are looking at. And then the last bird that we want to look at is one called a bald eagle. A bald eagle is basically one that, or rather is a community where a nest is built by both birds, that is the male and the female bird. They go out together looking for the material to build this structure. And over time, unlike the other birds, it may come back to it. When it has had to migrate to different areas depending on the weather, it comes back to it over some time and then refurbishes it up. Basically, it is a long-term structure that it puts together, and it is one that is put together by all the different the different genders within it. And also it takes a much longer period than, say, a hummingbird's or even a weaver's structure. These other two can take even a single day, few hours for instance. But from what has been publicized, bald eagles take about 2 weeks minimum to about 3 months to build the structure. And the idea there is that it must look for the strongest type of material that it is firstly able to carry and also able to fashion around its nest to ensure the durability of that nest and withholding certain type of environments. And also above that, it picks the highest point within a tree where it must build if it's a tree, but there must be no obstruction from the very top for it to be able to see threats should there be any. It is not covered in any kind of way, unlike a hummingbird's or even a weaver's where there's only a single point to view or even to enter. So it speaks of openness, it speaks of the ability to take into account different environments, the air environment, the place where it must pick its food if it's the sea. So it's speaking to that. And we are hoping that regardless of where you feature in these identifications that we have made, which are quite extreme, yes, but however closely you may align with any one of them, we are hoping that this will be a place for you. We are hoping that it will be a place that provides a certain form of training and also coaching. And these two things speak to two different things. Training speaks to a particular skill, the development of that skill, whereas coaching speaks to the management of that particular application of that skill in different environments. So we are hoping not just to give you content that will train you in any particular way, but also give you ways of how to make use of that particular skill in different environments. So please do come through, and we hope to see you even here next week as well. And we are grateful that we have decided to give the nest a chance. And something that you may have seen there as well, next to the name, the nest that we have chosen to go with, there is Bongezile. And the idea there with Bongezile is that this content is coming through you from the house of Abomkhiga. Their names being Bonga, which is mine, and Fezile, which is my wife's. As much as she may not be as present on this side of the camera as I may be, the idea is that it is content that is coming through from both of us. It is content that is coming through from our experiences. And one thing that I have found since I've gotten married, for the time that I've been married, is that I struggle to have an I. I struggle to say I this. I struggle to say mine this, because I no longer speak for myself. I speak for us now. And hence, more often than not, I will use the term we, whether it is speaking to me or speaking to her or speaking to both of us. Because what I've found out as well is that even things that I think only affect me affect her. Hence, the generalized use of we that you will see coming through more often than not here. So that is the idea behind the nest. It is a safe environment that we are hoping that you too will find safety in exploring your own life. Safety in being true to yourself in terms of where you can improve. True to yourself in terms of where you have failed and why you have failed in the past. And taking that on to say, how do I then now, with that knowledge, go about and build my life? Very much for tuning in. We are coming to the end today, or we are coming to the end at this particular point. As you can see to your at the bottom there, you will see a link. Please do subscribe when you've come to terms with that this content is one that applies to you. We are excited to have you on board, and please do share in your own circles as well that there is on YouTube, amongst the many channels that you have seen, and particularly people have seen, there's one that speaks, not just speaks for itself, but is looking to speak to the practicalness or the practicality of living with Christ. So thank you very much.